In this video, I'm going to talk about sort of these different musical stages that people go through on their journey to becoming a great musician, and I want to see if you can take your musicianship to that next level. This is an idea that's not necessarily super scientific, but it's just something that I've noticed over my time of teaching students at different ability levels, and also sort of in my own journey as I've gone from a very beginner all the way up to a more advanced level that I'm at now. It's really fascinating to listen to different students, and you can almost tell what skill level they're at just by sort of what they're focusing on in the music and what they're thinking about as they're playing. By understanding these different levels and these sort of different stages of musicianship, I think it can really help us to actually become better musicians ourselves by just starting to think about that stuff that's at the next level beyond where we're currently at. And as with any sort of broad categorization like this, it's not always linear and you're not always going to be like exactly in one spot. You may be in one spot on some pieces and a different spot on other pieces, or depending on what you're playing. And even professionals will sort of travel all across these different levels and stages, maybe within one performance even. But it's a good broad overview to start sort of thinking of these categories and start working your way up to that highest level. So the first stage is just really focusing on sound quality. So these are like your beginner level type players who will have to put a lot of work into just getting a sound, getting a consistent sound. It may be that crossing the break is really challenging, or even for more like intermediate and advanced level players, it may be that transitioning into the altissimo or just the general quality of the altissimo is really challenging and requires a lot of focus. But that's sort of always the first thing that players will think about and focus on, is that the sound quality has to be there, because it's really obvious when it's not there, and it takes quite a bit of effort to really get the sound quality and think about it and make it correct. It isn't too long of a transition though till players start to make it to the second stage, which is all about notes and rhythms. I really wish it was the case that this was about rhythms and then notes. I think many players would be so much better off if they focused on the rhythm first, but unfortunately most players tend to focus on the notes first. But once you have like the sound quality and a beginner is able to make a consistent sound on the notes that they need, then they'll start thinking about what notes they're actually playing in the piece and making sure that they're playing the proper notes. And then usually the rhythm gets in there too, because rhythm is honestly probably more important than the notes even. So they'll start thinking about making sure that that's correct, that it's the right notes happening at the right time. Many players all the way up through the high school level are sort of stuck in the sound quality, notes and rhythm stage of things, but typically around middle school or high school, or after a year or two of playing, students will start to move into the third stage, which is more about dynamics and articulations. So this is where the field of observation for the player has sort of expanded beyond just the notes and rhythms and actually getting the clarinet to sound. And we're starting to see like, oh, there's some markings above the notes and below the notes, and those mean things as well. This is, I think, really common for a lot of high schoolers where they're really starting to incorporate phrasing and dynamics and actually doing like real staccato articulations and things like that in their music. Now, stage 4 is actually probably bordering on undergraduate, college level, maybe even like a performance major in undergrad. And this is where we need to start making some musical decisions that aren't necessarily written down. This is where you may start noticing a pattern like, oh, this phrase crescendos and diminuendos, but these few measures are basically the same material, but there's not a crescendo diminuendo written, but maybe we should apply that there too because it happened before. Or even better, the first time this crescendos, later in the piece it comes back, so maybe this time we'll do a diminuendo to have contrast. And even though nothing's written, it's starting to make those extra musical decisions and adding your own perspective to things. And then the final stage is to really add in the true character, the true style of the piece, do some deeper analysis, and think of maybe even the historical context of the piece. This is sort of the highest level of things because it takes the most effort to actually figure out. You have to know the history of the piece, you have to do some of your own analysis, maybe look at the harmonies that are happening and really dig deep into those details. But this is where you get a lot of returns, actually. This is where performances start to sound really authentic, and the playing of the piece sounds like how it's actually truly supposed to go, rather than just a sort of interpretation of it that may or may not make sense. Once you get the real history, the real context, and do that deeper analysis, you can really start to get the correct character, the correct ideas, and have the proper shape to the phrases, and make good musical decisions because they're well informed from that analysis and historical context. So you can think of this as sort of layering on top of each other. Of course, the best professionals are still thinking about sound quality and making sure that they have really good sound quality, but maybe they're thinking about that sound quality because of the historical context of the piece. Or they're, of course, thinking about playing the right rhythms, but maybe they're making a clear musical decision about the rhythm to maybe make it a true dotted eighth sixteenth rather than a triplet. And it's more intentional, more knowledgeable, there's more details there. So as you sort of level up, it's not that you forget about everything else, it's that you're adding on layers of more things to think about, more things to get in the piece. So where do you think you're at? I think most people are going to probably fall into stage 3, the dynamics articulations level, where you think about sound quality, you get a good sound quality, you think about playing the right notes at the right time with the right rhythm, and you add some dynamics and articulations. But I don't think too many people really go beyond that to making their own musical decisions, and I think even fewer people go beyond that to really studying the music, analyzing it, and thinking about the historical context and the character of the piece to really play it correctly. So I think whatever level you're at is completely fine, but now you can maybe think you know what that next level is. If you want to bump up your musicianship, if you want to take your musicianship to the next level, then you know what you need to be working on next. So leave a comment, let me know where you're at now, and even better, let me know some concrete action that you're going to take to try to get to that next level. So maybe say you're at stage 2, you're focused on notes and rhythms, but you're like, I'm really ready to start thinking about dynamics and articulations. Maybe you'll say that you're gonna mark your crescendos in green and your diminuendos in red or something in your music so that it stands out more. That would be a perfect concrete action to think about that. Or maybe if you're at that level 4 where you're making some musical decisions, maybe you'll say you're gonna Google your piece and look up the history of the music that you're working on and see if that can inform those musical decisions that you're making a little bit better. So comment where you're at now, what actions you're gonna take to get to that next level, and I wish you the very best of luck on leveling up to that next stage of your musicianship. And of course, I thank you so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you in another one.